The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is a brisk Wednesday in the rib. It's a little raw out there.
It's the wind that's doing it.
The wind is kind of kicking up, and they said it's going to get a little worse this afternoon. So we will open our show again with something, unfortunately. We're going to see if we can go like 2 shows in a row without having to show one of these.
A 50 gray report.
50 gray. 50 gray. You can read this one. This is nice and big. 50 Gray, California Street. That's down in my neighborhood.
Yep.
On top to Flint.
I know where that is, actually.
On top to Flint. It's down near Keeley and, you know.
It's not too far from the Rotary.
It's off county.
Yep, it's not too far from the Rotary.
Yep, from the Rolling Rock in the Rotary, in between those two.
Yep.
Yeah, down at the bottom at, but, yeah.
Because we had a recaller who lived on that street.
Yeah, that's right. And there we go. Elizabeth Mary, thank you again for telling everybody, reminding everybody about the crime wave. Maybe you should send this to City Hall, because I think everybody else in the city actually realizes that we're in the midst of a crime wave, and we'll get back to that. But first, we have something a little left over, but before we get into this, let me set the table for this little discussion. Channel 10, WJR. I can even read this through the paper now. This is pretty good, I think. Fall River residents worry they'll be priced out once South Coast Rail comes to the city. Yes, buyer's remorse. They found out they bought another bill of goods from the propaganda machine.
Just like the charter, just like the Jersey Project.
Yeah, there you go. Great. That's right, CJ. Just like they always do. They listen to the media. And the media in this city is like Radio Pravda. And they right up politicians' butts. Everybody knows it. It's kind of like what we're seeing on a national level, where we're seeing some of the video that was not released about January 6th. They were finding out the guy they said was dead, which they knew he wasn't dead like the day after. But to this day, there are people saying he got bludgeoned to death by a fire extinguisher. And, you know, the irony is he was a Trump voter. But now he's become, you know, they made this whole scenario that anybody who died of anything afterward, it's like COVID. Anybody that died, it was COVID related. So anybody that died that was in a Capitol Police for anything, heart attack, anything, it's totally, they said people died, but he didn't. They had a video of him in the congressional chamber with a helmet on, running around directing people, like a half an hour after he was supposed to have been killed. So, you know, politicians lie. I'm sorry. If this is an epiphany for you, you've been living under a rock for your whole life. But to get back to that, as we know, people are worried. Yeah, you better be worried, because you're going to be gone, and they don't really care. Now we get into something we had at CJ got in. The academic building has new owners with plans for housing. And they want city funding. What a surprise. They want city funding.
CDA funding.
CDA, then they'll look for a TIF, and then they'll look for everything, and they're going to look for every handout they can get. But remember...
And Paul will give it to them.
Of course, because it's mostly affordable housing. But
no, it's not mostly affordable housing.
I mean, I'm sorry.
It's market rate housing.
I'm sorry. See, affordable housing is such in the forefront of my brain all the time. What are there, 2 units in this thing?
2 units.
2 big ones, Paulie. Giving us 2 units. How many multiple family dwellings do we have in Fall River? And how many of those multiple family dwellings are inhabited by people who make a lot of money? Not a lot. And we know what the base income in Fall River is. Per capita is 28,000. Household is 48, less than about half of the state average. People are going to be displaced en masse. But don't worry, they're going to crow about the 2 units that they have. They're building more. Is that 64-unit building being put up? Remember, 64 units. Somerset. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That was I know where it was, but I wanted you to say it.
Yep.
How close it is. That'll be about as many units as we put up for a city that's about 10 times the size of Somerset. And it'll be a lot more.
And it'll take us 10 times as long to get there.
It'll take us 10 times as long to get there, building them 2 at a time.
That's right.
So, but this is, again, and who is it written by? The chief propagandist of Pravda.
Yep.
So we love to crow about the achievements. She's like his press agent. But that's all they know how to do in Fall River. Turn everything into market rate housing. That's all they know how to do.
And the worst part about it was, and Maura Healey said it, that the HDIP program, which Fall River has bastardized in the worst way, was created to create affordable housing.
Yeah.
But the legislature, of course, answering to the developers who gave the money,
Of course. They don't answer to the poor
left
people.
a loophole in there so that they could do it with market rate housing.
Who they steal the poor people's money, and they're the reverse Robin Hoods.
That's
government.
right.
They steal from the poor and give it to the rich.
That's it.
But you know who else is not really in favor of market rate housing? A much higher power. Because I saw this, and I was reminded of this, and I looked it up just to make sure. A higher power doesn't believe in market rate because poorer people are normally more religious, and So this is I'm reading from the New King James Version. And he said to them, and we all know who the he is.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it into a den of thieves." I rest my case. A higher power doesn't like market rate housing.
Yep.
And this is what they've done. They come in and they make a little money up front, however they make it, and then when things tank, they roll up their tent and leave, like they did in Detroit.
Yep.
Like they do everywhere.
Right.
And they're coming down to the South Coast to bulldoze things just to make.
Well, the developer for the Academica building is Cat Management. Its principal is Manju Nagpal, a developer from New York, not even from Fall River.
Yeah, and not even from New York originally, I guess, ethnically. But, now why are New York developers coming down here? There's not enough land.
Well, he's already successfully had 5 different properties, and he's rehabbed 22 units, and those properties were damaged by fire. So he must be going around buying fire-laced buildings.
Well, he's turning them over. That's
right, and that's a good way to.
Listen, you can't blame him.
No.
That's what he does.
That's right.
It's not about people like him, CJ.
No.
It's about the people who don't care about giving a piece of the American dream, allowing people to live in a home, and they don't care how many people they displace, because Kenny Fiola and Paul Coogan do not care about the people who they're displacing.
That's right. That's right.
And that's the case. Look, these guys do what they do. Nobody's saying this is America. This is a capitalistic society, supposedly. But we all know the connected do a lot better in capitalism than the unconnected.
That's right.
But you can't blame this guy. Look, hey, the guy's doing what he does. Can you blame them? No. But who you can blame are the people who we elected to make our lives safe and secure and give us an opportunity to live in this community without being drained of every dime, thrown out in the streets, and then pretend it doesn't happen. And that's the great thing about Paul. He'll never acknowledge that this is a crisis, no matter how many people, from the governor to the mayor of New Bedford and everybody else, no matter how many times they talk about how Massachusetts is really one of the worst states for this crisis, but they just go along and print trash like this, and they stick it in as a segue, like, oh, there's going to be two affordable housing units.
Let me read you some of this, okay? Nagpal has been working with the CDA for funding for federal money to make 10% of the apartment units affordable, or 2 units. It doesn't say how much money of CDA money is going to come out of this. Okay, last Monday, not this past Monday, the Monday before, Nagpal and Dion, that's Michael Dion, the CDA executive director, presented the project to, here's where the city money comes in, the Community Preservation Committee.
Oh, yeah.
The Community Preservation
You mean the
Act.
thing that was supposed to just take care of the historic buildings?
Right.
That we give money to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that's connected?
Right, now get
that one, okay.
And guess what he's seeking $350,000. Guess what for? An elevator.
They didn't have elevators in historic buildings, did
No.
they?
No.
Why would you give money to put an elevator?
That has nothing to do with preserving the building.
Yeah, well, not only that, it has nothing to preserve the building, but even those buildings that they're supposed to preserve, they have laws about you can't
Right.
change them into a modern building.
Right.
That's the reason you get the money.
That's right.
That's the reason you get it.
So they're
it's about, what does that P stand for? Preservation.
Preservation.
You're not preserving it if you turn it into a modern architecture piece. I'm sorry.
Now here's the kicker. Back in 2018, the CPC awarded the former owners $250,000 for a new elevator. Mm-hmm. That money was never dispersed because they had building repair issues. That was when the building inspector said, can't go in the building.
And by the way, just let me quickly remind the people, our viewers, and the people of Fall River, that this doesn't come out of our regular tax rate.
That's right.
Remember,
this is an
this was
additional
an
tax.
added tax
That's
that
right.
they got. Another one that you didn't add to that litany of con jobs that they gave us.
That's
You know,
right.
the charter, the Durfee. Now we remember you got conned on a CPA too. Because I remember watching that debate,
Yep.
and I'm saying, oh, it's all about the historic buildings in the north end. Then they give air conditioners to some connected, to somebody, to some entity that was run by the wife of somebody who's a player in the city. Mm-hmm. This is what they do. And this is what's infuriating. They don't care about you. They crap all over the regular people. Get out there and vote. It's the only way we can do it, so continue.
Well, in 2016, the Academical Club was granted $85,000 in CPA funding. For what? To repair the roof.
Wow, doesn't that sound familiar?
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Kind of like the Bank Street Armory. There we go.
The Bank Street Armory.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But we're only going to get, $200,000 or something
But
for
did
the
they
Bank Street
repair
Armory.
that roof?
I don't know.
Unlike the Bank Street Armory that got a boatload of money that didn't repair it, then they came back in for a second bite, and they got it.
And they got it.
And they got it.
That's right.
And now they're selling it.
Yep.
For what? Market rate housing.
Yep.
But then it says, another historic property on the market, Tuzville showed interest in, the Bank Street Armory is too decayed to be fixed. Is it too decayed to be fixed? I don't know how they stuck that thing in.
Because that's a link to the story.
Yeah, I know, but
Yep.
this isn't part of this story.
No, it's
you know.
not.
So they should have put it at the bottom because they stuck it like a dangling participle into this story.
For 10 years, we've been paying an additional tax
Yes.
for the CPA.
Time to get rid of that. After this next election, time to start dump the CPA.
Yeah.
It's time to start. We talked about it, but this is getting too much.
That's right. And now here's the other thing about the CPA. The money can also be used for parks,
Yeah.
open space.
Yeah.
That's why they bought the properties out in the reservation, and affordable housing. And guess which account has the most money in it? Affordable housing.
You can't say that too loud.
I know.
That's almost as bad as the P that sounds like an F. Mm-hmm.
It's almost as bad as saying forensic ornament.
Sounds like forensic. Oh, forensic. Oh, no, don't say that. Oh, forensic. Affordable housing. Now we got another word on that list of
Yep.
you can't talk about them. But look at people. You know, we're talking about this and we're kind of being a little, we're being a little satirical. But the reality is this causes real human suffering.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a subject to be ignored. And I'll tell you what, this really, really, bothers me because, a long time ago, I was on the Salvation Army Advisory Board. And it's a wonderful organization. They do a lot for poor people. And every Thanksgiving, we used to give out 100 or so turkey dinners to people who were really...
They also used to give away meals. They still do. They give away meals.
And we used to deliver full meals. And I took my son when he was a young adult. He was in high school, I think. I took him with me on a Thanksgiving to deliver turkeys to these people, and with all the fixings, because I wanted to have him open his eyes about kind of like, we're not the richest people in the world, but we're, you're doing okay. And I'm going to tell you something. Some of the absolute crap holes, 3-deckers that we walked in with plaster falling out and going into opening up into an apartment where they had like a card table for a kitchen table.
Yep.
And stuff like this. And look at that. Looking at these people, and they've got a couple kids, and they're living fundamentally with nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we still have a lot of those people in this community that don't make a lot of money.
I think we have more today.
Yeah, more, probably, but we had a lot then.
Yep.
And I'll tell you.
And they weren't going down to the Torn River for mussels.
Yeah, and exactly. They couldn't go down like they did in the 1800s and dig mussels and steal wood from the railroad so they could burn it for fuel. This takes a real human toll on the weakest in our civilization. So I read from the good book. Mm-hmm. Now I'll paraphrase a little bit of Gandhi, when Gandhi said a society, and I'll paraphrase in saying a city can be judged by the way it treats its most vulnerable and its animals.
Yeah.
And the way we treat our vulnerable in this city, people who don't have, some of them are working 2 and 3 jobs and they can't make it. We read that article on the last show from Chelsea that people are paying more than half their income for rent. And to say nothing about this, to pretend that it's not a problem, well, then again, look at what we got for a mayor. He thinks if he doesn't have a bullet hole in his house, it's not a problem. And we'll get into that one in a bit because that's a good segue. But this is a serious problem, people.
Well, did you hear who has now jumped on the rent control bandwagon?
Who?
Somerville.
Wow. Yep.
Okay? Somerville is not like Cambridge.
No. Cambridge is one of the most affluent.
Yeah.
It's probably the second. Newton.
Come on, Cambridge has got all of Harvard and MIT around.
Yeah, but Newton's still a little bit ritzier because they have virtually no poor.
Right.
In Newton.
Right.
So.
They only got elitists that are congressional, representatives.
Yeah, that's where the great unwashed who work in Cambridge go. They go to Somerville to live. That's where the 3-deckers are.
Right.
But you're right. But talking about Newton was on the news yesterday. I guess 2 police officers were assaulted during a domestic disturbance, not a murder or anything else like that. No shots fired. A domestic. Some guy punched a police officer in the head in Newton. But now we see the 2 differences of how law and order is in rich communities. Like get them out of Martha's Vineyard. Get the cretins out. It was lead news.
Yeah.
Lead news on the Boston stations.
Yep. CVB.
Newton had a crime.
Yeah.
A domestic. A cop got assaulted. You know what they're doing to that guy? They're throwing a book at him.
Right.
They locked him up. They're throwing a book at him. No, well, it happens every day. No, not in Newton.
Nope.
No, when you're one of the rich, we don't want our little part of heaven.
It's just like being Nancy Pelosi.
That's like being Nancy. That's right. And I still can't figure out how her husband's running around in his underwear in the middle of the night, but that's okay.
That's okay.
That's
And while we're speaking about assault on police officers,
Yeah.
Custodio, remember him?
Yes.
The former police officer?
Yeah.
Guess what?
What?
He was arrested again.
For what? Assault?
Domestic assault.
Jeez, that was a tough one, huh? God. You don't have to be a fortune teller.
No.
But look, this is serious stuff. Displacing people like this and having absolutely no reaction to it, like it's, hey, you can't afford it, move out. Go to Russia. Go jump in the Taunton River. I'll take your tents away. We don't care about you. You are non-people. You're not one of us. You're a non-person. This is outrageous. And look, this is only segued in this. See, this is not anything. This is just businessmen doing business. And if they can take advantage of it, they will, because that's the credo of business. That's why in feudal Japan, when they had the samurai, the lowest rung of their social order in Japan were businessmen.
Yep.
Because they said businessmen had no honor. All they cared about is money.
That's right.
And in feudal Japan, the lowest rung of their social order were businessmen. And that was like that for many, many years. They were not looked upon a favor.
Geisha girls were higher up on the ladder.
Yeah, they were pretty high up, actually. But when you think about it, historically, they have not been well received by the general public.
Right.
When you look at it from that perspective, because even the Bard, the great William Shakespeare, the Merchant of Venice. Well, what's that about?
Yeah.
Money lenders.
Yep.
Not a good thing, you know.
And what
the quality
did you just talk
of mercy.
about?
The quality of mercy is
and what
not
did you just
strained.
talk about out of the great book?
That's right.
Out of the good book? Money lenders.
Money lenders,
Yeah.
that's right. Thieves, and, well, you know, like he said in The Merchant of Venice, the quality of mercy is not strained. It is mightiest in the mighty, but not in this city. The mighty don't care.
That's right.
There is no mercy for the poor people.
That's
So
right.
now we've hit everything on this one: Shakespeare, the Bible, everything. So let's
Go take your SATs, people. Go take your SATs. We gave it all to you already. We gave it all to you. You should be able to take them by now.
Now, since we led, we'll circle back as Jen Psaki. Boy, do I miss her. That buffoon they got up there now, she's taking all kinds of heat. 2 Americans murdered, kidnapped and murdered.
Yep.
And she kind of does exactly what Paul does. It's like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's not really a big deal. They're crucifying her. But we're back to the crime, and I got to go over this data. Just peel it. I got this little tiny picture, so you can't really see it. It's over this corner.
And we're bleaching it.
Yeah, no, that's got to be expanded. And what it is it's a map of the city of Fall River. And this is from FBI statistics on violent crime.
Not that that's reputable, you know.
No, violent crime, and not that it's reputable, it's just the FBI.
That's right.
That's all. But I wanted to show you this, and I'm going to try to get it blown up on another show. But it's we all pretty know it. So it's got this color-coded little thing, and there's the little city over there in the corner. And so the safest neighborhoods in Fall River. Guess which is the safest neighborhood in Fall River?
The Highlands.
Did you see this?
I haven't seen it yet.
Highlands North.
Highlands North.
Highlands
That's
North.
really Highlands.
That's right, Highlands North.
That's right. That's really the North.
Number 2, Steep Brook. Where's Steep Brook? The North End.
Extremely North
Number
End.
3, Highlands Bank Street.
Bank Street.
Yeah, you know, that's the part of Highlands, because when Bank
Yeah, I
comes
know.
up,
But
that's
I mean,
the old, you know where the old Victorians were?
Yes.
You know, up around some of those streets that run up into that area, like Walnut, the high, you know, the top end of Walnut Street and stuff.
Yep.
That's considered that was the old Highlands before they built the new North
The new
End.
Highlands.
That's where all the mill owners and stuff used to live,
Right.
up in those Victorians. And then after, and then we have St. Anne's area, Father Kelly. But, we'll get the stats because the crime is just rampant. And this is the other thing right now, and I'm not sure if they've updated. I got to see exactly. I think this is 21 data. On our crime index, on the crime index nationally, you know how many cities and towns and little hamlets we have in this country?
Yeah.
Fall River is only safer than 24% of the cities in the country. We are in the bottom
Bottom
25,
quarter.
the bottom quarter of the entire United States.
There's something for you to feel proud of, Paul.
There's a real, it says, you can't read it because it's light, it's in blue. Yeah, I think if I hold it a little bit, you see crime index 24.
I thought you were going to say 24. We're only safer than 24 cities in the country. That'd be bad.
But look, let's look at this objectively here.
Yeah.
Look at the cities that we're looking at. Baltimore, Chicago, New York. Of course they're lower than us.
Right.
They got San Francisco, all
LA.
these big cities, LA, rampant crime, rampant murder rates, rampant violent crimes. 76% of the United States is safer to live in than Fall River. That is just tragic.
Isn't it?
And what's more tragic is the fact that it's never talked about. You know what it is? It's the greatest strategy ever, and we heard it articulated. Keep your mouth shut, keep your head down,
And they'll forget about it.
and they'll forget about it. But hopefully the voters will not forget about the abysmal record that this mayor and this council, for the most part, with the exception of one or two, one for sure,
One for sure.
Michelle, and hope in the next election we have some new candidates. There are illusions that there are a few new candidates and a couple of old ones coming back.
Yep, I believe Bob Pearson just organized his campaign account with OCPF.
Yeah, and I believe Cliff Ponte is pretty well. The rumor is that he is going to re-enter the.
Well, his
fray.
OCPF account is still active. He just needs to convert the status from mayor to
Yeah.
city council if that's what he
But
wants.
the rumor is that he hasn't officially
Right.
announced, so he's in it. And then I believe that there are a few other people that are looking at it. We got the names of these people, and so we will have some options here. And looking at this statistic and looking at the attitude that completely ignores the reality that everybody else has to live in, except those people that live in the Highlands North and stuff. It is what it is, people. And the only way it can change is you. Get to the polls.
And it's really sad that, we've lived this life with these same politicians for 30 plus years, and nothing's changed. Are you any better off today than you were 30 years ago? 30 years ago, I was better off than I am now. 30 years ago, you were better off than you are now.
30
Taxes
years ago,
weren't that bad.
everybody was-
Taxes weren't that bad.
You could leave your door open in Fall River.
You could leave your doors open. Police was fully funded. Fire was fully funded. You had full staffing. I mean, public safety was amazing back then. Now, 30 years later, and this is what your city councilors created, we're falling into the crap hole. So you just remember that. Well, I want to thank you all for watching and inviting us into your home. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday.